The property market booms, and after the boom, what happens? That's where we are right now. Let's talk about it.
So Mark, we've just come off a really good run. What happens now? Is it scary? Should we all be scared?
I reckon it's back to normal, and I think that when it's not the good times, the crazy times, the huge capital growth, I think you sort of stress about it a little bit, Jess. So you go, you sort of start looking around and listening to the negative stuff, which at the moment seems to be the interest rates out there. That seems to be the talk out there, that people are going, what's happening with our rates? Is it going to go up? What are we going to do when it goes up? So I think, yeah.
Do you think there's a little bit of it being in the brain rather than actually happening yet? I think we were talking about this the other day about how it's thought about so much that it comes into actuality.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important. The perception that people have got. I'm just going to turn that music off for a sec. The perception that people have got in their mind is actually much more powerful than the reality. So I think the whole idea of the government putting interest rates up is to literally slow people down, tell them to take it go a bit slower, because they're going to put the handbrake on everyone. Now, whether everyone puts the handbrake on themselves without the rates going up, it's the same net effect that they're after.
Yeah. And so how will that affect, just say you're a seller at the moment, how does that affect you?
Yeah, good question. So we just went into a presentation tonight. We spoke to a client, and the big question on that client's lips was, have I missed the boat? And I think as
a lot of people are saying that.
Yeah. And it equates to a hell of a lot of money, is what we know. So this particular client that we're talking to was in North Manly, in their sort of late 70s, and he's going what's the story? What should I be doing now? Where am I now in this market? So yeah.
Something good you said though is taking it as a net average over how long the tenure that you've had the property, rather than just at the moment. If you're wanting to put it on the market, just do it, because on the overall, when you average the amount that you could have made, it doesn't matter if it's a couple months earlier, a couple months later, just get it out. Is that kind of the...
I think you get a bit greedy.
Yeah.
I think we get caught up very much in the moment in the market, where if let's face it, a lot of properties, Jess, have made 500 grand, like a house in the Northern Beaches at the beginning of 2021, could have been worth 1.6. 1.5, and by the end of 2021, that property could have been sitting at 2.2. There's 500 grand that these guys made. Now, if that property has come back a little bit, which I don't like to admit, but I reckon it probably has slightly on houses and not for units, you've still made 500 grand.
Yeah.
If it comes back 50 or 100, whatever it is, you've made good money.
It's a natural order of things. If something goes really high, it's going to have to dip back down and balance out inevitably anyway.
Yeah. And I don't think, and as much as we don't think, but I don't think we wanted the property market to go on as violent as it was. Like, if you had that market going, like I always call it the property bus, and I say the property bus was doing 150 kilometres an hour. To get off the property bus last year or onto the property bus buying last year was a violent ride and adventure. Whereas that property bus now has slowed right down for people. That property bus is probably doing it, 50 to 60 kilometres an hour, a much nicer market.
And it's only happened 3 times in history. So end of World War II, end of the Cold War, and now, all of which are very uncertain times. It's much better when it's balanced out rather than not knowing what's going to happen next month.
Yeah, so people have got a short memory.
Yeah.
And I think when you look over the last 100 years of property in New South Wales, there's been 3 distinct booms. And those three distinct booms were pegged at 1950, 1950 after World War II, the rebuilding of our country. And that other one was 1989. There was a lot of change with the way property taxes were changed and negative gearing was introduced, and a lot of that stuff have really made a huge change to the market. And then now, so there was, just so everyone knows, guys, there was 100% gain in 1 year in 1950. There was about 26% gain in 1 year in 1989, and there was 22% gain across the state in 1 year, which was last year. So I'm interested when I look at that as to the buyer product, how that corrects.
Yeah. And when it corrects, just say that you have listed your property. What's the process of selling going to look like? What are the open homes going to look like? What's the interest going to look like? The final amount it goes for, what's all that going to be like now?
Yeah, I think, guys, it's important to look at the when you're looking at selling your home, the net effect of selling your home. So the reality is that selling a unit, it's still a pretty good market. Selling a house, you may be taking slightly less. If you're going up in price, the good news is you're buying that higher price point is selling for slightly less. So I'll use a silly example of 10%, for example. If you're selling at $2 million, 10% less, well, that's 200 grand. But if you're buying at $3 million, that's 300,000. So you're actually, it's a consolidated market.
It works out better for you in the end.
Yeah.
And it will happen whether it's a boom or a not as fast moving market. Either way, you're buying at the same market you're selling in. It's not two different things. You can't buy when it's really low and then sell when it's really high. The majority of people will do it at the same time.
Spot on.
Yeah.
And I reckon you can call that a balanced market. So the property market, we peg when it's a seller's market. That means you've got like so many people coming through your open homes. The prices are going up like crazy. And a seller's market is a great market, obviously, to sell in, and a hard market to buy in. Now, a buyer's market is a pretty rubbish, pretty crappy market. It's when, and days on market, as we spoke about today, but a buyer's market, probably is on the market a long time. Buyers, you hold on to them like absolute gold if they're making an offer, because the next one's not going to come around for a very, very, very long time. But at the moment, it's sort of right in the middle. It's not a seller's market, not a buyer's market. It's balanced beautifully. So that's why we call it a balanced market.
We were talking today about days on the market, and how in the peak it was 18 days, and then the worst you've ever seen it was 100.
Yeah, DY got to 130 days.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. So we run a metric. RP Data runs a metric as to when a property first comes onto the market, and to when the property is actually sold, how many days that was. And at the moment, we're sitting about 18 to 24 days in DY for units. That got out to over 120 days for it. That was an average number.
That's insane.
So it shows you how different that market can be.
So with a more balanced market, it means we'll have less people through open homes, which then means that number's going to slightly increase, which would just be part of the normal. Yeah,
that's right. So it's nicer. It's a better market.
Yeah.
What else we got to talk about?
What else are we?
We've built in equity. I think that's important. This marketplace, in this particular market, now that we've had the boom, the good thing, guys and girls, is you've built in equity, you've built in savings, you've built in a cushion into your property. So relevant to what happens from here on, when you go off history, it doesn't really change much. You've locked that in, which is great, that equity, which is good.
All right. So would you rather, quick question.
Yep.
Would you rather be a buyer or a seller tomorrow?
I reckon buyer.
I
reckon buyer, because it's the long play, it's the long game.
Yeah.
And I reckon if you can be in a buyer position, you can plant seeds. I think always planting seeds is better than reaping seeds. And it probably comes to an age thing as well. So I don't at the age of 45, I want to be planting the seed still.
For sure. I'd love to be a buyer too.
Yeah.
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 At 22, also would love to be a buyer.
Yeah. In our 80s, maybe, then
Yeah.
I think you want to, you want to be reaping the seeds and selling stuff, but certainly not now.
Yeah, for sure.
More stock.
Yes, more stock on the market with longer. Well, that would make sense why you'd want to be a buyer because you have more choice.
Yep. There's so much more stuff out there. So if you're buying a house or buying a unit, it's more relaxed. There's more availability of stock. So it did get to a stage through the Christmas period, which is normally skinny already, that we got down to a record 10-year low of 330 properties on the Northern Beaches. Now we're back up to 780 properties on the Northern Beaches. So there's just a lot more selection for people. And what was interesting is pre-market was happening a lot more.
It would make it frustrating as a buyer when you're not even seeing things have a signboard up and they're already sold.
Yeah.
So in this market, it's a lot
FOMO.
better, to even get the opportunity to walk through. And people weren't even getting the chance to see the property.
No,
Yeah.
there was so much more FOMO. We've got some comments there. See if we've got any questions, guys. Buy more, says Luke. Bill says there's a second wave to come. Just look at supply and demand. I reckon you could be right, Bill. Talking about that second wave, Bill, I don't think we've truly factored in the sea change and the tree change on an international scale.
Yeah, because now the borders are open. For sure.
So people have, I think, lived out that their inhibition. If they want a tree change, if they want a sea change, they've affected that change now over the last 2 years. 2 years is still a short period, but I think a lot of people have pulled the ripcord out and said, I'm going north, I'm going south, I'm out of here. But if you think about it, guys and girls, that is a domestic market. That's people going from DY to Coffs or DY to Newcastle or DY to Port. And that's people going from eastern suburbs to DY to Northern Beaches, from North Shore to Northern Beaches.
Even in rentals, though, this is also happening in the last couple of months because a lot of the international students came in.
Yeah.
And so rental property was going really quick and a lot of people haven't been able to find because the stock's going so fast.
Yeah.
So that alone, let alone when people start buying from overseas and coming over, it'll be a second wave.
It's an interesting market.
Yeah.
And I would have thought that rental market is very reactive to the sea change, tree change internationally to happen fast. Mm-hmm. So you just confirmed that's happened fast. But now that international thing, if I'm going to be booking Little Billy and I'm overseas, I'm probably going to start aiming for January to migrate my family over. Airports are open, paperwork is in place, and then they'll start bringing their IP and their money into Australia.
For sure.
I think Bill's right on that one. Now, stable, up or down for Sydney? What do you reckon?
I reckon stable for a little bit. There's been too much crazy, and to balance out the crazy, there has to be some balance, some stability.
Yeah.
From last year, it was a volatile market. You didn't know what was going to happen in the next week, in the next month.
Yep.
It would make sense. Everything has a up and a down.
Absolutely. It's all relative, says Bill. The market cycle is unlike any other previous cycles. It is, but it's very different. But if you do look back on the last 20 years, and I brought that up on my phone, I don't know if we're going to be able to put that on the camera, but these are the last cycles, guys. I urge everyone to remember this when it comes to sentiment. See if I can bring that up there. Oh, look at that. That did a good job.
Yeah.
See that?
Boom, boom.
Boom, 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 says Vel. So 1950, we did 111%. 1989, we did 29% and 22% there. So, Bill, I still have to say a boom still looks like a boom and a bust still looks like a bust to me. Do you know what I mean? Did they go up there? Now, what's interesting is the corrections, guys. See the zero on the far left of the screen. I don't know if you can see that well. But that zero on the far left of the screen there, that's how much the property market corrects. So I'm not scared about the correction. When the market corrected downwards, it didn't go to negative much. When it went up 111%, it went negative 18%. When it went up 29%, it went negative 7%. So I think we've actually had that correction in the market, and yes, it's all relative. Vel says, what about Narrowena? No comment, Vel. No comment. He's the best. I went to school with Vel. Rates. What do you reckon?
They are still low. But again, I think it's more the perception of what's going to happen rather than the actual things that the government has done. The fear of what's next.
Why do rates go up?
Pardon?
Not that we're economists, but why do rates go up? Why do you reckon they go up?
To stop people from borrowing.
So I reckon it just slows the whole economy down, but I reckon it's done it.
Yeah.
I reckon it's done it.
Everyone's worried at the moment, which has done its trick by itself. Yeah.
And if you pull the handbrake up too hard, you might lose control of the property vehicle. Yeah. So I think the government's going to be really, and don't forget, I think people are paying higher rates by fixed.
True.
So they've opted to pay for the security blanket of 3 years, 5 years, a higher rate, which is net effect again is to slow that property market down. And I think it's done it. In hard economic times, is the government going to slam the economy and put rates up? It's quite the opposite. Every time we've had hard economic times, look, I'm no economist, so I'm only guessing, but every time we've had, going off history, hard economic times, it seems like the rates seem to go the other way.
I was going to say, when they go up too high, it just puts everyone in a worse situation, and it's not in the government's interest to put them up.
Smash it.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work.
And it's interesting having your perspective, because your generation, what are you, generation X? Z? Two different generations. It's interesting to see the two different perspectives on that, but I reckon spot on with rates.
Yeah.
Smaller open house numbers, that's for sure. Hey.
Yeah, for sure. Which goes hand in hand with more days on market, like we talked about before.
It's also down. So, concluding, we had a boom. Now what? From all the information we've spoken about, rates, what they're doing, we've spoken about the last three corrections, the last 100 years, we've spoken about the property booms and bust. We've spoken about the great run that properties had with people building an equity. We've spoken with open house numbers being lower. We've spoken about more stock, a balanced market. All in all, when you body all that in, what do you reckon? Now what?
At the end of the day, it's natural order. There must be an opposite to everything.
What do you mean?
Like, it's gone up, it's got to go down.
Yep.
It's got to balance.
We don't like to admit that.
No, but it's the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not that much down.
No, just balancing, just getting back to a happy
medium.
Yeah.
And I think I love that comparison of the property bus. You know, it just keeps going. It doesn't throw itself into a reverse or breakdown or stop forever. It just keeps going. So that property journey and that property bus, believe it or not, in 10 years is going to be double.
Yep.
In 20 years is going to be double. In 30 years is going to be double and double. That's just what property does. Get used to it. That's life. As much as you cannot make sense of the last 100 years or 50 years or 30 years.
The last 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
It's what it does.
Yeah.
Thank you, legend.
Thanks.
Have a great night. Jess, thank you very much. And keep an eye out for this lovely young lady, Jess, and welcome back officially.
Thank you.
So
I'm so happy to be back.
Oh, so Jess, there's now 3 Pattersons working in the office. Jess's mum, her sister, and welcome back officially. And Jess, do you want to tell us just a quick bio about yourself?
Yeah. So I worked here. I started in accounts, then reception, then rentals. I left for a year and I worked for quick service company, a major fast food company, doing in their commercial property team. And now I'm back as a sales agent.
What'd you come back for?
For you.
Hey, but you came back for not. I like the selling the hours.
Yeah, I like
really,
that. Mark and I were talking just before about how with any job you can pay for hours. You can pay someone however many, $50 an hour, $100 an hour. But as a real estate agent, you're not capped. You just keep working, and you reap as much as you work, you reap the rewards. So I'm keen to get back and work hard.
Keep an eye out for this genius. Keep an eye out for this genius. Thank you, legend.
Thank you.
Take care. See you.
Bye.
Oh, Jess, look, I didn't turn it off.
Oh no.
Oh my God.
Oh, no.